Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take stacks of information, plunge right into them, and surface with the essential insights you need.
Exactly. We're here to kind of give you that shortcut, pull out the surprising bits, the critical context, and just cut through all the noise.
Today, we're tackling something really vital. I mean, for anyone who drives in New York State, this is key. We're diving into the New York State Driver's Manual.
Specifically Chapter 9, which focuses on alcohol and other drugs.
Yeah, and this isn't just, dry rules.
Not at all. It's packed with incredibly serious information. So our mission here is to really get our heads around the dangers of impaired driving in NY, the specific laws, the frankly severe consequences.
And it's all coming straight from this official source material.
Right. And the manual, it doesn't mess around. It hits you right away with a pretty stark statistic.
Which is?
Impaired driving is involved in over 40% of all motor vehicle fatalities in New York.
Wow, 40%. That's huge.
It really grounds the whole discussion, doesn't it? It reminds you that this isn't just about rules. It's about a massive human cost. Lives lost, injuries, families just devastated.
And the manual points out, look, not every impaired driver crashes, okay?
But, and this is the key takeaway, every impaired driver is dangerous. They're putting lives at risk, period.
And this risk is even higher, the manual says, for younger drivers. Under 21.
Yeah, significantly higher. They're a small group of drivers overall, but they show up way too often in the fatal crash stats involving impairment.
Why is that exactly? Less experience.
That's a big part of it. Less experience driving, less experience, with alcohol or drugs, so the effects can hit harder, maybe unexpectedly.
Which leads to tougher penalties for them, right? The source mentions that.
Absolutely. New York's stance, based on this manual, is really strict. Tough penalties, very limited plea bargaining, especially for that age group.
Okay, so let's unpack what the manual says about how alcohol actually messes with your driving. It's more than just feeling a bit off, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The manual details how it directly impairs those critical skills you need. Think reaction time.
That split second can make all the difference.
Exactly. It slows you down. Plus, it affects your vision, makes it harder to see clearly, and messes with your judgment of speed and distance. Like judging how far away another car is.
And it does that weird thing to your brain, too, right? Lowers inhibition.
Precisely. Makes you more likely to take risks, chances you wouldn't normally take if you were sober.
But the really scary part, I think, is what the manual says about self-awareness.
Yes. That's maybe the most insidious effect. It makes you less aware of how impaired you actually are. You might even feel, more confident.
And you absolutely shouldn't be.
Right. It's a dangerous combination. The manual gives an example, trying to judge if it's safe to pull out into an intersection.
Yeah, after stopping. That requires good judgment.
And alcohol compromises that judgment, increasing the chance you make the wrong call. Boom. Crash.
It also mentions a specific danger at night. Something about headlights.
Good point. Yeah, it reduces your eye's ability to recover from glare, so oncoming headlights can effectively blind you for longer than usual. Night driving's already tricky. This just adds another layer of risk.
And the crucial thing, the manual stresses this. You don't have to feel drunk for this stuff to start happening.
Nope. The impairment, the danger, it begins with the very first drink. No waiting period. Okay, so moving beyond just alcohol, the manual is really clear that other drugs are a big problem too.
And drugs here means a lot more than just illegal substances, right?
Absolutely. It covers prescription meds, over-the-counter stuff like cold or allergy medicine, things people take all the time. And yes, illegal drugs too.
That's such an important point. People might not think their allergy pill affects driving.
But it can. Any of these can mess with your reflexes, your judgment, vision, alertness, sometimes even worse than alcohol.
So the advice is pretty clear then.
Check the label, always. If you're taking any medication, look for warnings about driving. Or, even better, just ask your doctor or pharmacist. Don't guess.
Makes sense. And the manual really warns against mixing, doesn't it? Alcohol and other drugs.
Oh, absolutely hammers that point home. Never mix them. It doesn't just add the effects, it multiplies them. Dramatically enhances the impact of both.
And can cause serious health problems, even death.
Yes. The manual gives an example. One drink plus a common cold remedy could hit you as hard as several drinks normally would. It's that serious.
And just to be clear, driving impaired by drugs, whether alone or mixed with alcohol, is a crime in New York.
Yep. That includes marijuana, cannabis, illegal stuff like cocaine, heroin, LSD, but also some prescription drugs too.
All right, let's shift gears a bit to the legal side. How does New York actually, measure impairment? Let's talk BAC.
Right, blood alcohol content. The state has different levels of offenses based partly on this. The manual lists them out. You've got aggravated DWI or AG DWI.
That's for really high BAC.
Yeah. Then standard DWI, driving while intoxicated. There's also just driving with 0.08 per BAC. Then you have DWAI drug, driving while ability impaired by a drug. DWAI alcohol, which is impairment by alcohol, but maybe below the 0.08 DWI threshold. And DWA combination, driving under the influence of both alcohol and drugs.
And BAC itself, the manual explains it's just the percentage of alcohol in your blood?
Pretty much. Usually measured with a chemical test, breathalyzer is common, but also blood, urine, even saliva tests.
What are the key numbers we need to know? The legal limits.
Okay, so in New York, over 0.05% BAC is legal evidence of impairment. That usually lines up with a DWAI charge.
0.05, okay.
Then 0.18% or higher is legal evidence of intoxication. That's your standard DWI threshold.
And 08, got it.
And then 0.18% or higher, that's evidence of aggravated intoxication. That's the AG DWI level.
But here's something really interesting the manual points out. It's not just about the chemical test result, is it?
No, and this is critical. Chemical test evidence isn't the only way to get convicted. The manual is explicit. A police officer's testimony about how you were driving, how you looked, acted, smelled, that can be enough.
Even without a BAC number?
Even without a number, or if the test was somehow inconclusive, the officer's observations can be powerful evidence.
That's huge. So you can't just, hope the machine is broken.
Not a good strategy, no. And if you are found guilty, any alcohol or drug driving offense, the manual says your license must be revoked or suspended right there at sentencing. They take it immediately.
And just a quick note from the source, commercial drivers. Even tougher standards, lower limit.
Definitely. Much stricter for them. Okay, so let's bust some myths. What actually affects your BAC?
Right, because people have all sorts of ideas. The manual says it boils down to basically three things, yeah.
That's right. 1, how much alcohol you actually drink, obvious, but key.
Okay.
2, how much time passes between drinks. Spacing them out matters.
Right.
And 3, your body weight.
So what does it not depend on? The stuff people think helps.
Well, it doesn't depend on the type of drink. Beer, wine, liquor. A standard drink has roughly the same amount of alcohol.
The manual gives examples, right?
Yeah.
1.5 ounce of liquor, 5 ounce wine, 12 ounce beer.
Exactly. And a 12-ounce wine cooler, too. They all pack about the same punch in terms of alcohol content. None is safer.
Okay. What else doesn't matter? Like how fit you are?
Nope, doesn't matter. Or how well you think you can hold your liquor. That's just perception, not physiological reality. Your BAC is chemistry.
So that 150-pound male example. One standard drink raises BAC by about 0.02%.
Roughly, yes. And it takes about an hour for the body to process and eliminate that much alcohol. The manual also notes women often process alcohol a bit slower, so BAC might rise faster or stay high longer.
So the takeaway is impairment starts fast with just one drink.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take many drinks to get you over those legal limits pretty quickly.
What about eating? Did that help?
Eating can slow down how quickly the alcohol gets into your bloodstream, sure, but it won't prevent intoxication if you drink enough. It just delays it a bit.
And coffee, cold showers, exercise, the classic hangover cures.
Total myths, according to the manual. They do absolutely nothing to lower your BAC. They might wake you up a bit, make you feel more alert.
But you're still impaired.
You're still impaired. Only time lowers your BAC. Your liver needs time to do its job. Okay, this leads us nicely into something called the Implied Consent law in New York. This is really important regarding those chemical tests we mentioned.
Implied consent. What does that mean exactly? The manual explains it.
It does. Basically, by driving a vehicle in New York State, you have automatically given your consent to take a chemical test, breath, blood, urine, whatever, if a police officer arrests you for an alcohol or drug-related driving offense.
So just by having a license and driving here, you've already agreed.
Essentially, yes. That's the implied part. You agreed when you got the privilege to drive on NY roads.
Okay, so what happens if you refuse the test? You say no.
Well, refusing has its own set of serious consequences, and this is totally separate from whether you're actually found guilty of the DWI or DWAI later.
Right, this is a key distinction. So refusal itself is a big deal.
Huge deal, according to the manual, if you refuse. First, your license is immediately suspended right there at your arraignment in court. Gone.
This is for refusing.
Just for refusing. Second, the fact that you refuse can be brought up in court as evidence against you in the driving offense case. It kind of implies you knew you were guilty, right?
Yes, that makes sense.
And third, and this is maybe the biggest one, there will be a separate DMV hearing specifically about the refusal. If that hearing confirms you refuse the test,
Yep.
Your license will be revoked at that hearing.
Even if,
Yes.
let's say you somehow beat the DWI charge in court.
Even then, you could be found not guilty of the DWI, but still lose your license at the DMV hearing because you refused the test. It's a separate violation with a mandatory revocation.
All right, let's really dig into the penalties and consequences now. The manual lays out quite a range, and New York State does not play around here.
Yeah, you mentioned it gets tough. We're talking fines, jail time, losing your license. It escalates quickly, right?
Absolutely. It depends on the specific offense and, crucially, if you have prior convictions. Let's take a first offense.
Even the lowest level, DWAI alcohol, 0.05, 0.07 BAC, that's a traffic infraction, still carries fines, maybe up to $500, maybe 15 days jail, and a 90-day license suspension.
So even the lowest level has consequences.
Definitely. Now, a first DWI, 0.08 plus BAC, or a first DWAI drug, those are misdemeanors. Fines jump to $500 or $1,000, possible jail up to a year. And your license. Minimum 6-month revocation for DWI, minimum 6-month suspension for DWAI drug.
Revocation meaning you have to reapply later.
Exactly. Suspension means you get it back automatically after the term, assuming you meet conditions. Revocation means it's canceled, you start over.
And aggravated DWI, that 0.18 plus level.
Also a misdemeanor for a first offense, but higher potential fines, $1 pay, $2 dive K, and a longer minimum license revocation, 1 full year.
Okay, that's first offenses. What about repeats? The manual talks about look-back periods.
Yes, usually 10 years for the more serious offenses like DWI, egg DWI, DWI, drug combination. For the lower DWI alcohol, it's a 5-year look back for escalating penalties.
And second offenses within that time, they become felonies.
Many do, yes. A second DWI or ag DWI within 10 years becomes a Class E felony. That means fines potentially up to $5,000, prison time up to 4 years is possible, and longer license revocations, minimum 18 months for ag DWI, minimum 1 year for DWI.
Felonies, that's life-changing.
It absolutely is. And for a third conviction within 10 years, potential for even higher felony class, longer prison, maybe even lifetime license revocation.
And the manual mentioned the listed fines aren't even the full story.
Right. Those are base fines. On top of that, there are mandatory state surcharges and crime victims assistance fees. Adds up quickly.
And getting your license back after revocation, not automatic.
Nope. Reapplication, maybe retesting, paying fees. It's a process. And again, the manual stresses penalties are even tougher for drivers under 21. But beyond the immediate penalties for a specific conviction, New York has this really stringent policy for repeat offenders when they eventually try to get their license back after a revocation. This is where it gets very long-term.
All right, this isn't just about serving the suspension or revocation period. What does the manual say? Lifetime review.
Yes. Anytime someone applies to get their license back after any revocation, the DMV does a lifetime review of their entire driving record.
Lifetime. Wow.
And for drivers, the state labels persistently drunk and dangerous. The outcome of that review is permanent license denial. You just don't get it back, ever.
Okay, who falls into that persistently drunk and dangerous category?
According to the manual, it's 2 main groups. Anyone with 4 or more lifetime alcohol or drug driving convictions or incidents, or someone with 3 or more in a 25-year period, plus at least 1 separate serious driving offense during that same 25 years.
And what counts as a serious driving offense in this context?
The manual lists things like being involved in a fatal crash, having a driving-related felony conviction, racking up 20 or more points on your license within 25 years, or having 2 or more convictions, each worth 5+ points within that 25-year window.
So it's a pretty high bar, but the consequence is permanent denial.
Right. Now, for other repeat offenders, say, someone with 3 alcohol drug convictions in 25 years, but no separate serious driving offense, they don't face permanent denial usually.
But there are still major hurdles.
Oh, yeah. Reinstatement is significantly delayed. They face an additional 5-year waiting period on top of whatever the original revocation period was, or 2 extra years if the revocation was for something non-alcohol drug related, but they still have that history.
5 extra years. That's a long time without driving.
A very long time. And when they do finally get their license back after that extended delay, it's often a restricted license, maybe just for work,
Right.
medical needs, that sort of thing.
Not full driving privileges.
Not initially. And crucially, they're required to have an ignition interlock device installed in their vehicle for 5 full years after the license is restored, at their own expense.
5 years with an interlock. Wow. And the manual also mentions something about the impaired driver program.
Right. For repeat offenders, the ability to get your suspension or revocation shortened by completing that program, that goes away. No more reductions for them.
The manual also highlights some other specific laws, like zero tolerance for drivers under 21.
Yes, this is super important for younger drivers and their parents to know. For anyone under 21 driving with any measurable alcohol in their system, the manual specifies between 0.02% and 0.07% BAC is a violation.
Not just an infraction, a violation with specific penalties.
Exactly. First time, 6-month license suspension, plus fees like $100 to end the suspension, $125 civil penalty.
And a second time.
Revocation for at least 1 year, or until they turn 21, whichever is longer. So it's very strict.
And another way young people can lose their license, trying to buy alcohol illegally.
Yep. Using your driver's license or even a non-driver ID card to illegally purchase alcohol, that also leads to a license suspension.
Okay. What about the open container law? Does that apply to passengers too?
It does. It's a traffic infraction for anyone in the car, driver, or passenger to be drinking alcohol, or even just possess an open container of alcohol. And now it includes consuming marijuana in the vehicle too.
While on a public road.
Right. On a public highway. First offense can mean a fine up to $150, plus those mandatory fees, maybe even 15 days jail. Higher penalties for repeat offenses.
Are there exceptions?
The manual mentions some, mainly for passengers in commercial vehicles like buses or taxis, but for your average car trip. No open containers, no drinking. Then there's the ignition interlock program we touched on, and Leander's Law.
The interlock. That's mandatory for DWI convictions.
Mandatory for DWI, ag DWI, and certain related criminal offenses. It's that device you have to blow into to start the car.
Installed at the driver's cost.
Yeah, usually required for at least 12 months. Sometimes a judge might grant a waiver after 6 months, but it's not guaranteed.
And the manual mentioned mandatory alcohol assessments.
For repeat offenders, yes. And based on that assessment, the court can order mandatory treatment as part of probation.
Now, Leander's Law. That sounds serious.
It's very serious. It's named after Leander Rosado, a young girl killed in an impaired driving crash. The law makes it an automatic Class E felony if you commit certain DWI offenses while having a child under the age of 16 in the vehicle.
A felony just for having a child in the car while DWI.
Correct. Punishable by up to 4 years in state prison.
And quickly, what about conditional licenses? People sometimes get those after a suspension.
Right. They allow limited driving, like to work or school. But the manual warns, violate the conditions or get convicted of almost any other traffic offense while you have it, and that conditional license gets revoked immediately.
So beyond the fines, the jail, the license actions,
Yeah.
the manual paints an even grimmer picture of other consequences, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you actually cause a crash.
Yeah, this is where it gets truly devastating. If your impaired driving causes injury or death, you're not just looking at DWI charges anymore. You're facing serious criminal charges.
Like what?
Things like criminally negligent homicide, vehicular manslaughter, vehicular assault, even aggravated vehicular homicide. These carry huge fines and potential prison sentences. The manual mentions up to 25 years.
25 years. And the financial side, insurance might not cover you.
Very likely won't cover you if you caused a crash while impaired. That leaves you personally liable. You could be sued for thousands, potentially millions, depending on the damages. Financial ruin is a real possibility.
Plus, trying to get insurance later would be a nightmare.
Extremely difficult and incredibly expensive, if you can get it at all.
And the manual also mentions other costs.
Legal fees. Defending against these charges costs a fortune, win or lose. And then there's the criminal record itself.
How does that impact things?
Makes it much harder to get a job, get into certain schools or professions, get security clearances, maybe even travel to some countries. It follows you. Driving while your license is already suspended or revoked for an alcohol offense, mandatory fines, mandatory jail or probation, and maybe even your vehicle seized.
Okay, so after laying out all those incredibly severe consequences, the manual does offer some advice on how to just avoid this whole mess, right?
Yeah.
Prevention strategies.
Yes, thankfully. And the core message is pretty simple. Prevention has to happen before you start drinking or using drugs that could impair you. It's all about planning ahead.
Makes sense. What kind of plans does it suggest?
The basics, really, but they work. Arrange for a designated driver before you go out. Rotate that responsibility among friends.
Or plan to stay overnight.
Yeah, if that's an option. Or decide beforehand you're taking a taxi or rideshare public transport. Just don't leave it to chance when you're already potentially impaired.
Giving your keys to a sober friend is another one.
Solid plan. If you do choose to drink, the manual advises drinking slowly. Don't slam them back. Maybe alternate alcoholic drinks with water or soda.
Right, pace yourself.
And specifically for cannabis, the advice is straightforward. Just don't use it before you plan to drive. Avoid it.
What about, like, social events?
Try not to make alcohol the absolute center of everything, especially if driving is involved later. And if you realize you've had too much,
Stop drinking.
yes, stop drinking several hours before you intend to leave. Give your body that crucial time to start processing the alcohol and lowering your BAC. Remember, only time works. And the chapter kind of wraps up with these review questions. It's a good way to make sure you've actually absorbed the critical points.
Yeah, like they're testing you. Remind us of the key risks, how alcohol messes with your skills.
Right, which drugs are problems, why you have to check labels, the danger of mixing,
What really affects BAC, what doesn't? Those standard drink amounts.
how long it takes to get sober. Hint, it's longer than you think. The only way BAC goes down.
Consequences of refusing the test.
And just all the other potential fallout from driving under the influence. It's basically a checklist of everything we just talked about.
A good summary to hammer it home.
Yeah.
So, what's the big picture here? What do we take away from this deep dive into Chapter 9?
Well, it's crystal clear that New York State takes impaired driving incredibly seriously. The dangers are profound, and the legal framework is strict, with zero tolerance being a recurring theme.
It's not just about, avoiding a ticket. It's about realizing impairment starts immediately, affects those split-second decisions.
And the consequences. They aren't just fines or a few months without driving. They can be life-altering, financially devastating, and last for years, even decades. It underscores that responsibility you have to everyone else on the road.
And this is where it gets really, really thought-provoking for me. The manual spells out that lifetime record review policy and the potential for permanent license denial based on offenses spanning 25 years or even your entire driving life.
Yeah, that long-term view is striking.
So it raises this question. When the state implements consequences that look back over such incredibly long periods, potentially your whole life, what does it really say about their perspective on genuine rehabilitation versus maybe permanent consequence? Is there a point where past mistakes become inescapable, regardless of change, and knowing that your record, specifically these kinds of incidents, can follow you for decades? How might that knowledge, that really long shadow, change how you think about risk or plan for the future, even years down the line if you ever face an alcohol or drug-related driving situation?